Hey, this is Chris with Montana Trout Fitters. Today we're going to tie my favorite little crayfish pattern, one I call Kay's Crawbaby. This is just tied to represent those little immature crayfish when they go through their molting stage and have no shell basically, and they're almost translucent. And that's typically the stage that I find in most trout's bellies, and you find a lot of those around here. So to start out with, we're going to be tying these on a Dairiki 810 size 6. That's a bass hook. I buy these things in bulk, 1,000 packs. Tie a lot of this pattern. Going to be using some bead chain eyes, medium sized and black. Some of our antenna here, we're going to use some silly legs in the nymph size in the sand barred. It's a really nice color. Add a little bit of flash and flare to this. We're going to use a little polar flash in gold. Then for the shell casing, we're going to use a little bit of Sow Scudback, 1/4 inch in tan. See, this stuff's fairly see-through. Your dubbing body is going to be Sow Scud Dub in a tan color. Your pincers, I like to use squirrel zonkers. This natural pine gives a nice offset mottled look. We'll be ribbing this today with gold ultra wire in brassy size. And the thread of choice today is going to be Unithread in 6/0 tan. So to start with this pattern, you actually tie this one way and then flip it the other. So we'll start with the hook, load it into the vise just like normal. Where you start your thread here is not super key or important, but where you put your eyes in is. You want your eyes to sit roughly right above the point of the hook here. So if you drop your thread down, should be right in line with the point. That's where we're going to set our eyes. These eyes will eventually end up on the bottom, causing this to ride hook point up. But to start with here, we're going to go ahead and set our eyes on the underside of the hook. When we get to the end, this will all make more sense. Let's just make some crisscross wraps over the top of those eyes. You want them secure onto the hook, but not so secure that they won't rotate around, which is a little abnormal, but you'll see why here in a second. So once you get those eyes set in, we're going to go ahead and give our little flare to this pattern here with some polar flash. I like to add this stuff into this pattern, not necessarily to represent any one thing on the crayfish, but just to give it a good look. This stuff can be a little wily, so sometimes I'll wet it down when I'm working with it. But it's not really key or important where this is tied in at, so we'll just take our thread back to where our original tie-in point was. Come in there, trim off that excess polar flash. Take that thread back now to the back bend of the hook. This is where we're going to tie in our little antenna. So if you go down a little bit of the hook here on that bend, that's okay. So tying in our antenna, use those sand barred legs. Set those in. Once you got those set with a few thread wraps, we'll go ahead and trim the excess off. You can leave it in that little loop there. It's actually not a bad way to leave your rubber legs. Makes it nice and easy to manipulate them. Next piece to this fly is going to be our scud back. We want to tie that in. Just do one nice soft loop until you get it on there, and then apply some pressure around that. And tie that right in over top of the two previous materials. Now, at this point, we're going to go ahead and form our dubbing loop. I used to like to use a little tool here called the Dub It tool. Why I like this tool is it's nice and easy for getting kind of furry, fuzzy bodies without having to do a ton of work. So now we'll take our dubbing, this sow scud dub, we just peel off little amounts of it and feed it into this dubbing loop. You don't want to do too much at one time because this will clump up and you won't get the effect that we're looking for here. After you feed a couple pieces in there, give it a couple of twists. Feed another piece into your loop here. Give it another couple twists. Grab some more dubbing, feed it up and in. Give it a few more twists. You'll see this hair starts to flare out a little bit, and with that sow scud dubbing mixture, you get a nice full body look on this pattern. So we're going to wrap that around. We're going to go around our eyes, in front of, underneath, behind, just trying to create a nice little head area. It's also going to serve to flare out our pincers here in a second. So tie off that dubbing loop, trim that out, take your thread up against it. Should have a nice big tied in head area now. Next we're going to take our squirrel zonkers here, trim these off already to size. I'm going to go ahead and just set these in right on the side of the hook. And you really want to kind of try to butt these up against your dubbing and your eyes. That'll kind of help flare these little pincers out some. And take the other one, set that on the other side. Same thing. Set those in there. Make some good thread wraps around that so it's nice and secure. Those shouldn't be much longer than about a shank length. If they're looking a little long, what's nice with this material is you can always come in, trim them a little shorter, do a little work. There, I'm liking the way that looks. Now I'm going to take my ribbing material, my gold wire here. I tie this on the opposite side of the hook from me, and I tie it slightly back from the pincers, and I'll just take my thread over the top of that wire here. Give it a couple of good wraps. I'm going to pull that wire off, and I'm going to set my thread in behind this here. Make another loop. This is going to be our next dubbing loop for finishing off the body of this fly here. Grab our dub it tool. Grab our sow scud dub. And we're just going to feed those small little amounts up and into your dubbing loop again. Give it a couple of spins. Feed a little more up and in there. The key to using these dubbing loop tools is to not use too much dubbing. The more dubbing you use, the less flare you tend to get on it, and the less kind of spiky look that you get to your body. And that's really what we're looking for here, is some spike and some volume to this. Represent those little crayfish legs as they swim around in the water. So once I get that in there, I'll tighten up my dubbing loop a few turns. Then I'm just going to wrap in. Make sure that you take your thread back if you already haven't to the eye. So I'm going to make a few a few wraps of that dubbing loop in front of my wire. And then I'm going to bring it in on the other side of the wire there. Now I'm just kind of filling up this void here. If it looks like you maybe have too much dubbing in your dubbing loop, that's not a problem. You want to stop short of that eye though. We'll let this loose. Pull a little bit of that dubbing back. Tie off my dubbing loop right behind the eye. And trim. Next step here, pull this scud back right over the top of this pattern You kind of give it some stretch when you do this. We're going to take our thread, lay that right over the top of that scud back, right behind the eye. Give it a good tight couple of wraps there. Pull that back, make a few thread wraps underneath it. Then you can leave yourself a little bit of this off of the back if you'd like. Kind of represent a tail perhaps. Now we're just going to simply take our wire. That first wrap is going to go in, kind of set this abdomen off, kind of give you a head look. And just space your wire through. Try not to catch too much of this dubbing. You might be able to get 3 wraps of wire in there, maybe 4, before you're right back to the back. Pull the scud back up, make a wire wrap underneath that, pull it nice and tight. Take your thread, wrap around that wire a few times. I'm just going to take my wire, wiggle and break it off. And I'm going to go ahead and whip finish here. Trim. Pull that back. Last couple steps on this pattern. Come in, trim out my antenna. Here's where it gets fun. You're going to take this pattern and we're going to take everything and we're just going to rotate it right with the hook. And we can take our legs here, manipulate our legs around so that they're not wrapped around the hook. Last step on this pattern, a little dubbing brush. Brush out some legs here. How much you want to brush is up to you, but I like a little bit of movement on this pattern. Lay that back over the top. Apply a little head cement perhaps on the back of this is never a bad idea. And there you are. You have your crawbaby ready to be fished, riding hook point up so that it snags less and catches more fish.